There's a moment every serious historian appreciates, when you uncover a detail from the past that isn't just interesting, but genuinely useful. A detail that reveals how people under extreme pressure solve problems with nothing but grit, urgency, and whatever scraps they had on hand. That's the spirit of today's guide. Because when you look beyond the big battles and famous generals of World War II, you find a different story. One of incredible field ingenuity. Soldiers weren't just handed perfect weapons. They adapted, improvised, and turned ordinary objects into tools that kept them alive. And if you're the kind of person who values preparedness and real-world survival lessons, these battlefield hacks offer more than historical trivia. They give you a blueprint for how resourcefulness wins when resources fail. So let's take a closer, deeper look at 7 unusual weapon hacks World War II soldiers made from everyday items, not as a casual trip through history, but as a conversation between people who take this knowledge seriously. 7 unusual weapon hacks, soldiers made from everyday items. Soldiers turned ration tins into makeshift tripwire alarms that could still work in a modern survival setting. Troops on both sides learned quickly that canned rations weren't just calories. They were crude metal devices waiting to be repurposed. Soldiers ran string, fishing line, or stripped communication wire through punctured ration cans filled with stones or shell fragments. Once tension was applied, the cans rattled loudly enough to expose night movements. This wasn't just primitive improvisation. It was a low-tech early warning system that functioned reliably even in bad weather. Modern survivalists can apply the same principle with aluminum cans, pebbles, and a taut line placed around a perimeter. Build it correctly, and the sound is distinct enough to separate human movement from wildlife. Troops crafted trench shotguns by modifying standard rifles with field-made adapters and improvised loads. While official trench guns existed, soldiers without access to them sometimes converted bolt-action rifles into close-quarters shock weapons. By creating crude adapters or sleeves at the muzzle, soldiers could load custom shotgun-style shells filled with gravel, cut-up scrap metal, or even clipped nails. These weren't elegant, but at close range, inside trenches, bunkers, or village rooms, they were brutally effective. The takeaway for today's historian or outdoorsman isn't to replicate a weapon. They're dangerous and illegal to build. But to understand the mindset, you use the platform you have and adapt its output for the environment you're fighting in. If you're studying weapon systems or practicing field modification, the principle is clear. Know your tool intimately and understand how to adjust its behavior within safe and lawful limits. On the front lines, soldiers sometimes turned ordinary socks and stones into rapid deployment sapper tools and, well, silent dispatch weapons. Now, this sort of thing is often dismissed as just folklore, but actually there are documented accounts from British, Soviet and partisan forces that confirm it. A tightly packed sock, filled with a smooth, heavy stone, became a silent and concealable impact weapon. It required no metal at all, so it drew no attention during searches. The purpose wasn't glamorous. It simply allowed sentries or patrols to neutralize opponents without revealing their position. Applying this lesson today, it's really about understanding improvised leverage. The principle here, adding mass to a flexible tether to generate force, translates to emergency tool-making with, simple physics. In a survival situation, the same approach could help you create makeshift flails for breaking ice, knocking down fruit, or dealing with small predators, all without relying on blades. Engineers and infantrymen, resourceful as ever, converted bicycle parts into trip-mounted crossbows for launching grenades. This is honestly one of the most fascinating examples of battlefield improvisation. Resistance fighters in Europe, especially the Polish Home Army, built spring-powered contraptions from scavenged bicycle frames, brake cables and leaf springs to lob grenades over walls or across streets, all without exposing themselves to gunfire. At a time when explosives were precious and accuracy really mattered, these devices worked well enough to justify their continued use. The modern takeaway is actually twofold: understand tension systems and learn to repurpose mechanical components. Springs, cables and levers, they're universally useful. If you ever find yourself needing to launch a line, deliver a payload across some distance, or trigger a remote mechanism, well, this same reasoning definitely applies. Soldiers turned fuel, bottles and cloth into multi-layered incendiary devices with tactical sophistication. The classic Molotov cocktail wasn't just a bottle with fuel. During the Second World War, soldiers improved it with motor oil for stickiness, potassium chlorate for ignition reliability, or even double-wick designs that could resist the wind. These weren't reckless acts, but rather calculated engineering responses to armoured threats. The practical application today isn't making incendiaries. Far from it. It's about understanding mixture behaviour, material burn rates, and the strategic objective behind any tool. Create time, create distance, or create distraction. Survivalists who study controlled firecraft or emergency signalling can extract valuable knowledge about how different fuels behave, how long they burn, and how to manage flame in adverse environments. Infantrymen crafted improvised smoke generators from sugar and nitrate-based powders. Soldiers learned that combining sugar with potassium nitrate from certain field sources produced thick, clingy smoke when ignited. This, you see, allowed units to create concealment signal allies or cover retreats when issued smoke grenades ran out. The chemistry is simple but powerful. Fuel plus oxidizer equals controlled smoke output. In modern civilian terms, the same principle applies to creating emergency signals, practicing smoke experiments safely under supervision, or understanding how obscurants function in tactical environments. Frontline troops modified shovels into multi-role weapons and breaching tools far beyond their issued purpose. The entrenching tool became one of the most versatile improvised weapons of the war. Soldiers sharpened the edges, adjusted angles for thrusting, or reinforced the handle with wire or leather to prevent breakage. In close-quarters fighting, these modified shovels became brutally effective. In non-combat use, they served as compact axes, pry bars, ice cutters, and digging accelerators. Today's survivalist should never underestimate a well-maintained entrenching tool. Keep the edge conditioned, test the hinge tension, and practice efficient swings. Learn from soldiers who carried them daily. One durable tool with multiple roles is better than a bag full of fragile ones. If you value historical knowledge that has practical meaning long after the war ended, this is the type of content you'll want to revisit. For more guides like this, make sure you subscribe, share the channel, and help keep the legacy of survival knowledge alive.